We tend to think that a lot of us is inside our head. You know, that's the psyche model, basically. But the more I've practiced as a clinical psychologist, the less I've actually been convinced that that's true. So I could say, well, let's say I want to know about your personality. We think, well, I want to know you. I want to know about your subjectivity. I want to know what's inside of you. But that isn't actually what you do want to know if you're doing clinical work, say, with someone. You want to know, do they have any friends? That's really important, because if you're miserable and anxious and badly placed in life and misbehaving, one of the reasons that all of that can occur is because you don't have any friends, you don't know anyone. And that's not something that's inside you. It's you localized in a broader sphere. And then you might say, well, do you have a job? And, well, let's talk about the job. Do you actually make enough money with your job? Is it satisfying for you in any way? Are you bullied all the time when you're at work? Does it provoke anxiety? Is it a career that allows you to go somewhere? Are you overworked? Well, but let's start with just the first question. Do you have a job? Well, if the answer to that is no, you have a serious problem, and that would enough might be to depress you and make you anxious and hopeless and nihilistic and all of those things. And you could say, well, you're not reacting very well to not having a job, but that's kind of a foolish objection, even though some of it might be true. One problem is that you're not reacting very well to not having a job, but another problem is that you don't have a job, and that actually constitutes a problem, right? You don't get to eat. You don't have a place to live. Those aren't psychological problems precisely, even though a psychological problem could make it worse. Well, are you as educated as you should be? That's another question. How do you handle drugs and alcohol? Are they taking you down a bad pathway? You know, what about intimate relationships? Do you have one? Do you have a plan for one? Or is that a never-ending series of catastrophes or something that you avoid completely? That's a big problem. And maybe people aren't attracted to you for one reason or another. And you can think about that as a psychological problem, but it's an interpersonal problem. And the degree to which that's a psychological problem is certainly unspecified when you first begin to talk to somebody. What about your family? Do you have a family? Because it's hard to be in the world all by yourself, that's for sure. It makes things a lot more stressful, even though having a family can also be extraordinarily stressful. You know, do you have plans to have children? How are you doing with your parents? Do you get along with your siblings? You know, all of that, to me, is more fundamental, and it's outside of you. Those are elements of your experience, more broadly conceptualized, more than they are objects of your psychology or of your internal experience.